Thank you for joining me. We're at chapter 24, verse 3 of 2 Kings. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. Notes. Now, the meaning is not that the nation was punished for the personal sins and crimes of the wicked Manasseh 40 or 50 years previously, but that the class of sins introduced by this king being persisted in by the people, in other words, continuing, well, it brought the stern judgment of God upon all of them. In other words, they were doing exactly as Manasseh did, and, one Manasseh was bad. Imagine about 3,000 or 4,000 of them. But he repented near the end, so he wisened up. Verse 4. And also for the innocent blood that he shed, and for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Notes. Well, like the other sins of Manasseh, the shedding of innocent blood continued, both with the Molech offerings and in the persecution of the righteous people, which of course would be the prophets and normal believers, very, very sadly recorded throughout all the prophets. Verse 5. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. Notes. Well, it says nothing about him being buried as would be normal, when in fact he was buried, but like an animal. Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 18 through 19. Very, very sad ending. Verse 7. And the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land, for the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates all that pertained to the king of Egypt. Notes. Now this speaks, of course, of the very, very rapid ascension of the mighty Babylonian Empire. In fact, Babylon had now conquered Egypt for the most part. Verse 8. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. Notes. Well, the mother was probably the ruling spirit of the time during her son's very, very short reign. But why did he have such a short reign? Recorded in verse 9. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father had done. Notes. The prophet Jeremiah pulls no punches when he calls him a despised broken idol and a vessel wherein is no pleasure. Jeremiah chapter 27, verse 28. Continuing. At that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. Notes. Now the short phrase, at that time, refers to the reign of Jehoiakim, of course. Verse 11. And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. Notes. While the siege conducted by his generals was still going on, Nebuchadnezzar made his appearance in person before the walls, which brought about the surrender of Jerusalem. Verse 12. And Jehoiakim the king of Judah went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother, and his servants, and his princes, and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign. Notes. Well, this is talking about the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. This verse portrays the surrender, basically, of Jerusalem. Verse 13. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon the king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. Notes. And the prophecy by Isaiah and Hezekiah was fulfilled in chapter 20, verse 17 through 18. Verse 14, and Nebuchadnezzar carried away all Jerusalem and all the princes and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained save the poorest sort of the people of the land. Notes. Well, in the first deportation were carried away the Mordecai, Ezekiel, Daniel, and Nehemiah. Some very, very prominent figures in the Bible. But what happens to them is quite a bit different than what really actually happens to all the others. And we're going to cover that. Some good things happen with these people. Verse 15. And he carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen, and silver, and smiths 1,000, and all who were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. Notes. Well, the nation of Judah was left with really no guiding forces. Verse 17. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah his father's brother king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. Note, now this is not Jeremiah the prophet who was at Anathoth. This is a different one. Verse 19. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. Notes. Well, among other things, he fell into the old error of putting trust in Egypt, which was an act of rebellion against God and against the Babylonian Empire, and very, very quickly they got into scuffles. Verse 20. For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Notes. Well, God permitted Zedekiah to rebel, for it was determined that Judah should be destroyed at this time and go into captivity because of repeated sin. Because of repeated rebellion against his word, the anger of the Lord had risen to a pretty bad level. And God's just washing his hands with his people. He's not going to forsake them completely, but he's just not going to have a whole lot to do with them. Chapter 25. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, the reign of Zedekiah, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came, he and all his host, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about. Notes. The exact day of this siege was revealed to Ezekiel in a vision in faraway Babylonia. That's in Ezekiel chapter 24, verse 1. The Holy Spirit records the exact day that this began, simply because of its significance. Israel, destined to be the light of the world, lost her way and would become a vassal state to heathen powers, which was never intended by God, but brought on by Israel's persistent rebellion. God cannot condone sin, even if it is his own chosen people. That doesn't mean that God's going to smack you down for every stupid little thing that that you do, but he's certainly not up there cooing and cawing, okay? Verse 2. And the city was besieged unto the 11th year of King Zedekiah. Notes. Well, the writer omits all the details of that siege, and he gets right to the point of the final catastrophe. And we must pick up in chapter 25, verse 3 of 2 Kings. Thank you, and God bless. See you later.